And welcome back to Air Tycoon Online 3. Yeah, this episode we're just going to continue on trying to, get our profits back up there. Um, as you can see, the upticks are still very good, but the downticks are very, very bad. Um, yeah, the worst of the downticks, as we can see, are we're almost not making money on them. Um, Once again, just because the World Traveler Index didn't quite recover to where it was before, and that is the risk of flying very large aircraft, which need, to be at least closer to full to make good money, right? Um, so, anyhow, with that in mind, there is still a lot of ways we can improve. First of all, the World Traveler Index does look like it's trying to recover back to like the 2,900 or so it was before the crash, which is good. I think once we're in like a 2,800 range, my downticks will no longer look like this 179,000. Very, very, very poor. It'll probably drop another 70 or so thousand next turn to close to neutral, but that kind of 200 points extra of World Traveler Index would make it so I'm probably about 300,000 during the downticks, which would be a very big improvement, obviously. Anyhow, with that in mind, as we can see, since I recorded last episode, we've made 1.8 billion dollars, so we can go ahead and spend some of that on good old Tupolevs and 747s. Now, you guys are probably all very tired of seeing the Tupolev routes, as the Tupolev routes are kind of mundane. They're always the same. Um, yeah, it's always the same story with the Tupolevs, like just some random short haul, medium-sized route or something like that. Not too interesting, not too special. So I think instead now I'm only gonna actually show you guys the more important things that I've done. So one of the first things I did is, since I haven't made routes for a day or so, or half a day or so, it means all the routes I made yesterday have kind of reached their peak load factors. So I took this as an opportunity to change the prices. As you can see with the little yellow dot indicator here on the pricing, those are the routes with changed pricing. And basically what I've done is, if the load factors are not good, I've decreased the price by different amounts. So how I did that is, I went here, I said if the load factor is, say, less than 85, then we set the default fare to 1.25, right? And then I went ahead and decrease that 10% and decrease this 5% and so on and so forth, so that the lowest prices I have are 1.15. And this is kind of like a big sweeping change across the company. And by the end of this episode, we kind of get to see if that made a big difference in the profits that we're going to make. As you can see, yeah, thanks to just the low World Traveler Index, routes which were good before, like this, like London to Zhengzhou, now have huge variance. I remember before the variance looked something like this. I like that I'm tracing with my hand, so maybe about half the amplitude. So like the lows were like 2 billion or 2 million per turn, and the highs are like 4. Now the lows are like much worse than that, you know what I mean? So yeah, hopefully, as you can see, we can see the World Traveler Index increasing is kind of decreasing the amplitude of these swings already, which is really, really interesting. Anyhow, with that in mind, we can go ahead and order some more 747s. Now, Los Angeles turns out to have such good premium demand that I don't quite have enough premium seating, even to like smaller cities. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we have just a tiny bit more premium seating for Los Angeles. Yeah, Los Angeles is just like epically big, kind of. It really does generate a ton and a ton of demand. Um, so yeah, we can go ahead and take advantage of that and just create some Los Angeles style stopover routes. Yeah, I'm really happy that I opened this Los Angeles hub. I wish I kind of not discovered it, but noticed like how good it was earlier. Yeah, the kind of World Traveler Index kind of reshuffled um, after the economic crisis, in the sense that before the crisis, London was the biggest city, or very close to the size of LA. But now LA is almost 100 points bigger. So yeah, it's time to focus in on LA and really take advantage of all the stopover routes that are possible to a city on the West Coast. Yeah, I just had kind of forgotten about like this kind of cool style of Pacific stopover, I guess. Um, yeah, and it really lets you like open a lot of new different routes. Hopefully, this is 5 schedules per week. Yep. If it's, I should have, for example, for Fukuoka, um, Kagoshima, the bigger Japanese like cities, which are around 400 business and tour in this world. I should have made those five stopover routes and been more careful about that, but I wasn't really thinking about that yesterday, and I don't feel like remaking them just for the sake of a tiny bit of cash. For example, I think I did Sendai with a 3 schedule per week flight, right? So it doesn't make very much, as you can see, 2.7K. Um, the other half of the stopover only makes 3K, right? So yeah, it's gonna be nice because it's gonna be full no matter what all the time. Um, but yeah, it's still a little bit inconvenient because if I had done it another way, I could have been making a lot more. I just kind of forgot to think about that during the time of making the stopover. So anyhow, now that we are doing other stopover routes, it should be fine. Like um, just a little bit less of an advantage than we could have had. But once again, it's getting to the stage of the game where you can't micro think about everything because it just takes too long. Like there's so much routes and so much demand out there. It's not really about making sure you maximize all of it. At some point, it's just about making sure you are at least considerate of like which routes have more or less demand. But you just really need to just actually like go and make all those routes, right? Because it takes a long time in real life to start to use all the demand that is available. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and make this beautiful stopover route here. And yeah, let's see if we can order more 747s. Let's see how many we can. Okay, two. So we're gonna need to go um, order a lot more Tupolevs. Let's see if there's any used planes. By the way, there aren't. I'm like open to buying used aircraft from other people's companies. Like even if they're not the perfect planes that we want to use, um, there can be a really big advantage to actually having cheaper owned aircraft, right? The reason why we lease Tupolev or buy Tupolevs is just because they're the cheapest aircraft you can buy, which are decent, right? I think they're a little bit better than the Antonov 24, uh, which of course is available, and I might look into seeing how well Antonov 24s perform, right? But I don't think it's very good, so we'll kind of hold off on the AN-24s for now. But if it turns out, AN-24s are good aircraft and, we can make money flying them, I would definitely be down to do so. So, yeah, this is one thing I also asked last episode, but it's a little bit earlier. So, if you're still watching, first of all, thank you. But what kind of aircraft do you prefer to use for your companies, right? Do you prefer to use at this kind of stage of the game 707s, and then when you can afford it, DC-10s and Lockheed L10-15s or whatever? What are they called? L10-500. I forget the name of the Lockheed Martin trijet. Do you use that one? Do you use 747s if you can afford it? SPs, 200s. Like what's your kind of favorite planes of this era? I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments because obviously for me, you guys know what I prefer. It is the Boeings. It is the Tupolevs. Um, yeah, always has been and probably always will be for a while. I'm yet to see a better like mid-game start strategy basically. Um, yeah, like I see a lot of very good strategies which don't need to use Boeings and Tupolevs if you play from the start because of course you have a fair playing ground, right? From the beginning and you don't need to do something stupid to catch up. Um, Yeah, whereas me, where I always start 10 years into the game, right? Like, if you think about it, the number one player, yes, I'm only 1/5 of his value, or slightly less, actually. I'm like 1/6 of his value. He is doing very, very well, by the way. He's kind of pulling away from me now after the economic crash, as my profit is probably less than half of his on average. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough, tough way to catch back up to that. I'm not sure if I can, honestly. If he continues to play actively and just open new routes the way he's been doing already, and that kind of thing, yeah, he's just going to pull away from me and I'm not going to be able to catch back up, which is a little bit unfortunate, right? But hopefully we can find ways to kind of maintain what is close to equity, right? And just like funny things we can do to kind of keep up, like exploiting this Boeing Tupolev strategy as long as we can. Lease 747-100s. That's probably a good idea. Though later on we will have to switch to owned planes, and I think stopover 767s will be the way to go. I also think will be able to close considerable ground once the world is more saturated, in the sense that a higher percentage of all the routes that exist have been made. Because being able to use stopover routes to exploit smaller and smaller like bits of demand is definitely something which the number one player who only flies direct won't be able to take advantage of. Um, so yeah, let's just say every single turn or every single year, the number one player has 100K per tick more profit. All right, that's probably something pretty reasonable which you could achieve. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened at all, right? So all I have to do is kind of make sure I'm increasing by the same amount, right? He'll still always have more profit than me, but at some point, he's going to probably need to slow down, if I were to guess, right? Just because the number of routes that are available at all are just decreasing. Um, and yeah, let's. I'm kind of curious. Where's he based out of now? He opened a new base in Manila. That's an interesting base. I don't think the demand there is very good. So he's gonna have to be flying pretty small planes to Manila. So let's kind of see what he's doing. And yeah, he is flying pretty small planes. But he's probably the player I've seen who has the most investment in both services and name value. Like right, I have pretty okay service investment, but very mediocre um, advertising investment in like the different cities I have, right? So whenever we have a mutually competitive route, he always outperforms mine for like the same. What am I trying to say? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, when we're investing when we have the same price, right? His route will outperform mine by a considerable amount, right? And I think that's just mostly due um, to the higher levels of advertising investment he has in most of his hubs. So I do need to catch up in that, right? But when money is as scarce it is, you really want to spend most of it on new planes, right? And yeah, the investment we can kind of scale up later, right? Because it really scales, like how efficient advertising investment is scales with the size of the hub. Um, like the more routes you have from a certain hub, the more efficient it gets to advertising invest. Like right, like I could do this. I probably should for London and Paris, which are my two biggest hubs. Um, and probably later LA, because I'm probably going to quickly develop LA into my biggest hub for 747s, right? So I should probably develop the advertising investment there as well, right? But yeah, like these are just the places which are just super, super important. Glasgow has grown quite a bit to advertise, invest in. Yeah, sorry, I'm like, I see something and it like catches my interest, and I'm like just like instantly off topic because like, yeah, I'm just like, ooh, shiny. Like, all right, and whoops, I just accidentally started playing a YouTube video in the background. Let me turn that off quickly. Sorry about that. Anyhow, yeah, we need more 747s. So, yes, it's pretty interesting having already used like 7 or 8. How many Tupolev do I have to use? 35, yeah, right? Like it's super funny to kind of been having played this long, right? And still having more cash left over. That feels pretty good actually. Yeah, it's kind of a sign we're getting into the mid game, which is really nice. The mid game for me is the most fun part. Late game, like one of two things has happened. Is the number one player has pulled away so far away from you, you realize you cannot catch them up. Number one, two, three, whatever, right? Or you are the number one player and you are so far ahead of everybody else that they don't seem to ever be able to catch up. So um, it's kind of like just you lose interest just a little bit when something like that does happen. Anyhow, that's not a big deal, and we can go ahead and continue to open routes because I don't think I will catch up to the number one player for a long time in this world. I will have to stop doing the Tupolev Boeing strategy when it happens, right? Because the Tupolev and Boeing strategy means the only value, quote unquote, of your company um, is the value of the Tupolevs I own, right? And yes, I have 500 Tupolevs very soon. Not quite yet, right? But I have like 430 right now. In a few turns, I'll have 500 Tupolevs, right? And they only have a value of uh, roughly 10 billion, right? Because the 747s are leased, they don't add any value to your company, and they decrease it by requiring you to do what's it called? A monthly payment and a down payment, right? So yeah, in order to eventually start actually quickly gaining value, you have to stop leasing. Um, I just want to delay that time as long as possible because once your company starts to gain value, you need to pay your staff more. You need, yeah, you just start like appearing as more of a threat, and people will start to compete with you. I'm already getting quite a bit of competition, I think. So, um, yeah. Anyhow, we can still find creative stopovers like this, which feels pretty good actually. Yeah, these are all stopovers with just because of the size of LA. We'll probably have enough demand to just maintain being full almost all the time. I even wonder if LA is big enough to drive cities with around 200 in business and tour for 747s. Like, we don't need to explore those options quite yet, given that there's still some stopovers on the other side. Um, but we will see. It's a real possibility, right? That we could just make stopovers with those cities. Like Prague is probably a bit too small for the size of my premium classes, right? But nevertheless, I think it's still worth doing. So let's continue to do that. Yeah, I should have shrunk my premium classes a little bit for these routes. So on my next batch of 747s, I definitely will. Um, yeah, it is starting to get a little bit harder to find 747 routes to Los Angeles. But yeah, once again, adding I think probably close to 27/7s just in one turn is really, really good, right? Whoops, I clicked Tupolevs instead, right? Yeah. Um, a lot of 7/7s added just this turn. That is definitely something that is really, really good. Anyhow, let's shrink these premium classes considerably. Let's do 7 first-class seats. Why not? And once again, we're going to need to do another batch of Tupolevs. Yeah, the turn is about to pass too. So, one thing I need to do before the turn passes is very, very quickly LA, boom. We need to add more of these. I just don't want it to overfill. It is not worth it for even one turn for this to overfill. What's the turn processing? Ah, the turn is processing. Okay, I mean, hopefully shouldn't, given that's at like 20 something percent, right? But yeah, we should be fine there. We should be fine. Um, Anyhow, let's go ahead and put our last few leases in for 747s. Hopefully this went after the turn. Otherwise, of course, they're not going to be flying and just drain a random 6K of um, lease expenses for no reason. But okay, Okinawa is a bit too far. I think we're running out of cities which are in range, right? It's just this city in Korea, Cheongju. Excuse me. It's left, and Guam, but Guam doesn't have an airport yet. Nadi? Ooh, yeah. That's pretty clever. I like that. When you start to use random Pacific islands in your stopover, I really enjoy that. That's fun. Anyhow, World Traveler still went up 6.2 points. Let's go. That feels good. How's our profit? Yeah, 73K. As you guys can see, just not that good. Um, yeah, despite our price changes, right? But I think our price changes probably had a positive effect. Um, yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, as we can see, the net profit actually went up a little bit on a downtick. So that's a really good sign that the price changes were a positive thing. Um, Sorry, excuse me. Some of them didn't, of course. Let's see. And some of them did. So it looks like the price changes were definitely a positive thing overall. So that's very, very good indeed. Hopefully, um, yeah, hopefully as the turns pass, we can really like hone in on the correct prices for each route, and make more money just by getting more out of the routes we did. Now our profit did drop a lot, right? But I think one of the biggest reasons why the profit drop was so extreme is simply because we opened over 20 new 747 routes on a downtick, right? Which means those 747 routes are making a loss, basically, where in the future they'll be the things that are making the most profit. And of course, we have almost 40 idle Tupolevs, I think, at this point. Yeah, we have exactly 40 idle Tupolevs, actually. So yeah, anyhow, a string of upticks is coming soon, right? And our company is always very, very profitable on the upticks, just thanks to the nature of how big the 747s are and how they're just flying around a lot of empty space during the downticks, which kind of sucks. But yeah, anyhow, let's see if we can do something like that. that seems pretty good. That's only 5 schedules per week. Is there a major city close enough that I can do 6 schedules per week? Yes, there is. Look at that. I really enjoy when you find creative solutions for stopovers like this. Yeah, this is a 6 schedule per week stopover. Um, you kind of leveraging the fact that Milano is to Rome is kind of big enough to support its own 747, and Los Angeles to Milano is also big enough, probably to run a direct 747, right? But it's just why not get that extra free schedule per week in, um, basically for free, right? So that is very, very nice indeed. And yeah, I wish there was more airports in this area of the world. I don't know if I can come up with many more stopovers that involve uh, East Asia or Oceania to Los Angeles. It's kind of tough now. Yeah, like we have cities like Manaus and Port of Spain, Santo Domingo, right? But let's see. This would have to stop over to a city really far north. Oh, that's still not a proper stopover? Really? Okay, to a city like Edinburgh, it would be. Um, Glasgow. See how far south I can go before it's not a proper. Okay, it's not a proper stopover to anything below Edinburgh, basically. Edinburgh doesn't have an airport though, and Bergen is not a proper stopover route either for some reason. Wow. Okay, so, oh, this is not a proper stopover route either. There's just no airport, so it doesn't say it's not a proper stopover route. I see. I see. Okay, so that doesn't work. A little bit unfortunate. No problem. Anchorage is used. Oof. Dalian has no airport. Niigata has no airport. Okay, yeah, that's probably it for the East Asian stopovers to LA for now, unless I want to use that little city in Korea we talked about before. Yeah, otherwise we're gonna have to find kind of different angles to come at. Let's see how Stuttgart is. Stuttgart is decent. Are there any more like yellow stopover enabled cities which we don't have routes to? I don't think so. So it's time to focus on individually okay routes. I think we might be able to make more stopovers in this direction. Ooh, it's not quite valid. Oh, Trujillo is actually decent. So we can do something like this. Oh, we have no more 747s. Okay. Let's go ahead and see how many more we can get. That's one. Does that one enable us to lease another one? No, it doesn't. Um, yeah, it's always really funny when you lease one plane and then you use that plane to enable another lease. And then sometimes that enables another one and it just keeps going and going and going. It's like, oh, what's going on here? And anyways, we can't do that now, unfortunately. So let's just see how many more we can get. And that does, unfortunately, appear to be as many as we can get. Let's just buy the last three. Anyhow, let's try and find homes for these last couple 747. So Toulouse, stopover in Los Angeles to Trujillo looks like a decent one. Trujillo, of course, is not quite big enough. I wouldn't recommend making 747 routes to a city the size of Trujillo. But the reason I'm doing it, and I think it's probably decent, is because Trujillo is a lot shorter than the leg to Toulouse, right? So 4 schedules per week on a route, which would normally have probably 8 or 9, probably maybe 9 or 10 schedules per week. Means it's basically like 40% of the demand it normally would have for a plane this size. So it kind of works. Um, yeah, if the city were any farther, I would be kind of suspicious on whether or not that would be a good idea. Anyhow, that's not a proper stopover route. Let's see if something like Tampico is, and it is. So we can do Tampico to Los Angeles and then see if we can find a city in Europe anywhere. Is there anything better than Gothenburg? Yeah, a lot of these are relatively far south, which make them a little bit harder to use for stopovers. But yeah, Gothenburg looks like the best option here. So we'll go ahead and make that. It is 5 schedules per week, and I don't think this is a route which will be full on downticks. Um, but yeah, once again, when the World Traveler Index is this low, we can't really expect routes which are full on downticks, even with stopover at 747s, right? So yeah. Anyhow, with that being done, I think that's kind of all I want to do for this episode. I'm going to, of course, use these 45 Tupolev 134s off camera, and I'll show you guys how that goes. And all right, guys, we've been hard, just like grinding out these Tupolev routes basically for the last 25 minutes, and we can see that most of these routes are just between some of the European hubs I have and just small-ish European cities almost everywhere. So yeah, these are the kind of Tupolev routes we're making. And they kind of like I just want to mention why I'm not using the North American um, hubs I have for plentiful Tupolev routes, and that's the main reason is um, in North America, short haul routes are important for stopovers, unlike Europe. Europe just happens to be in the middle, where there's almost an equal number of cities around here on this side, and in Africa, and in North America. So it really balances out well. Um, where in North America, there's far more cities on the European side than there are on the North American side. So you do want to save as many North American cities, even for really silly stopovers. Like I did expand out of New York and make a lot of stopover short haul routes there, like New York to Knoxville. But I'll probably eventually need to delete these in order to form a kind of stopover route, kind of like this, like Knoxville to New York, and then with the stopover to somewhere around 9,000 kilometers per way, like Baku or Tehran or something like this. Once we start using longer range planes, right? Um, so basically don't want to go and back and delete all the routes I make. And same with Los Angeles, except all the routes are over here. So why do I want to leave Montreal and all these cities unused? Is because later on, when we make stopover routes, we can use all the cities in Asia over here. And we need somewhere to stop them over, which is once again North America, right? So I don't want to make the routes and then delete them again later. That's kind of annoying. And that's just the main reason why I focus on Europe for short haul routes, where Europe to Europe is basically reserved for short haul routes. And yeah, as we can see, we have a lot of flights just like zipping around Europe at this point. It's gonna look even crazier later. Um, how many planes do we have right now? 671. Um, yeah, like we'll probably do this cheap love strategy until we're pushing 1,500 planes or something like that. Basically, just until it becomes very difficult to find any route for a Tupolev 124 whatsoever in Europe. I'll probably even do the North American ones later if I really do run out and just delete them one by one as we get later game and need more stopover options. Right? But yeah, like if we look at a city like Paris, there's just not a lot of cities um, that have Tupolev routes available at all. Like we can compete, right? But competing with a Tupolev is a generally bad idea. As unless the route has way more demand than there is supply, something like this, for example, um, then the problem you'll get is that simply your plane will just be kind of empty, which is really funny because such a small plane being empty is like how, you know what I mean? So yeah, anyhow, if we look at it right now, the Tupolevs, even some of the competitive ones are starting to do pretty badly, as you can see having this much kind of swing on like a Tupolev 124 is kind of embarrassing, right? So we want to kind of avoid that and just open monopoly routes with these uncompetitive 124s. I'm very curious how a lot of my competitive routes are doing, so let's take a look. Um, yeah, it looks like the good ones are still doing fine, but the ones near the mid and bottom are just not looking too good. Like things like this. Look at the variance on that. That is absolutely enormous. And this is just a 707 for competition, right, with a very low price. Um, so yeah, that's not really what we want to see. After lowering the price, we did make more profit than we did last time, which is good. Uh, yeah, just like routes like this, just so much variance, just due to a little bit of competition. Like this is 747 SP, so I guess they did pay a lot for that. Um, yeah, still kind of annoying though that they've kind of realized that I'm open to compete with what is this competition with a 70 with a Montreal route? Okay, um, that's not what you expect to see. Yeah, like routes like this. Wow, this is really bad. Um, yeah, with the competition upgrading to a SP. Um, yeah, it just looks like that. There's just not quite enough demand on these downticks, right? So I'm gonna have to do another price adjustment. Whoa, that is bad. Um, oh, my competitor is charging 1.0 pricing. I guess that makes sense. I do need to lower the price more, it looks like, for routes with really bad load factors. But this is the worst downtick, right? So I will withhold judgment until a more average downtick, like zero point 0.3, right? Because that kind of probably gives me a more accurate representation of kind of what's going on. Yeah, like any route with competitors is just I'm just charging too much. It looks like. Uh, there are three 747s on this route, and that is not great for competition. Yeah, like this guy's flying direct and only making 1.1k, so I don't feel bad about that really. Um, yeah, let's take a look at like Bangkok, for example. Let's see how that's doing. Oh yeah, we already looked at that and it was awful. Okay, yeah, these are some of the most awful like competition routes I have, so I guess that kind of makes sense. Why they're bad. I will try and make them better. I think for next route. Look at this. Jeez, that is not good. Why is that so bad? Okay, he's an SP. I'm a 747-100. I have better. Oh, is this because I just remade the route? Ah, it's because I just remade the route. Okay, I see, I see. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it remembers um what it was like. But yeah, like I should be making more than him, right? It's a stopover. Um, like yeah. It's okay. This is because this is a brand new route. Okay, that makes sense. London to Monrovia. Okay, that's also brand new. That makes sense. And yeah, like this is the worst established route I have. So I guess it's not even that bad. It's not even losing money. Um, but yeah, with how big the profit swing is, I definitely need to find a solution for these in the near future. Probably just by adjusting the pricing for really poor load factor routes even further. But don't adjust the prices for all your routes using this if you've just made routes because it'll affect the prices of the routes you just made. Always do that the first thing you do in the day. Um, as then you have no new routes and it won't mess any of those up. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.